Welcome back for episode 213 of the Working Fans Podcast. And before we get into this week's wrestling talk, we have a special guest who wants to preview his new podcast that is From the Cheap Seats. This is Kyle. Kyle, how you doing?
What's up, buddy? What's up, Joe? How goes it?
Hey, it's going good. The season kicked off last night, and I know you have this podcast around football, so tell us about your plans. How are things kicking off?
Listen, thank you. The season kicked off as a lot of people saw last night with a big upset. The Lions upset the defending Super Bowl champs with the Chiefs. But I'm here to talk about our podcast, your podcast, all the NFL fans around the world's new podcast. It's From the Cheap Seats. And what I'm looking for, I'm speaking off of the cuff here. What I'm looking for is the passionate NFL fans who have opinions and things that they've said to their friends that, they may bring up. Hey, you remember when Josh Allen did this? Or, you remember, hey, I said that we should draft Jalen Hurts over Tua. And those guys got no recognition, right? Those guys, no one ever said, I remember that when you brought it back up. So what I did is I wanted to have everyone have their hands into a podcast that allowed them to have their opportunity to come in and speak, and give their guttural reactions to their games on Sunday and, the games on Thursday and games on Monday also. So, yeah, it's an exciting time. The season has started.
Nice. Now, I believe you're kicking things off this week. How do people get involved? How do they send videos to you? We will have the information up. I don't know if I have it in the description now, but I will put it in after the fact so people can find you. But people watching, how can they find you?
Okay, so we're on all the socials. The big one where we probably have the most traction is Facebook. So we've got a Facebook group. All right, that's From the Cheap Seats Podcast on Facebook. You'll see a working shot of the logo that's up there. And that group, so in that group, right, you can post messages, and you can also message me privately. Kyle Langlois is my actual name, but you can message me any kind of content that you may have. If you have a reaction, right, you're watching your game and this is something you want to say and you want to put it out there, send it to me. You can send it to our Facebook page. Also on Instagram at ftcheapseats.pod. I got to double check on that. But yeah, we're also on Instagram. That's kind of a work in progress, the rest of the socials. But Facebook is really the big. So, yep, right there. So From the Cheap Seats Pod. And the Instagram is at fromthecheapseats.pod. And then on Twitter, it's ftcheapseatspod. So you can follow any of those. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. I'm also going to be getting it on YouTube. So again, we were talking about the content. So any kind of content you may have, if you got something you want to give, who your MVP is going to be, right? You want to talk about who you think is going to be Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year. You can, any way that you can call, text me, or some of the people that you'll find out are working with the show. Give us your opinions, and we'll make sure we get it on the show.
Nice. We will have to have you on again, maybe mid-season, and then again at the Super Bowl. See how the progress of the show is going, how people are interacting with it. Because for people that don't know, me and Kyle went to high school together, and when he reached out when he was reaching out with advice about a podcast, I wanted to do like what I could to help put it over, because while people enjoy a wrestling podcast, a football podcast will grip people so much more. And if you heard the passion that Kyle has for this podcast, the vision that he has for this podcast, that's what's going to make you want to watch, make you want to participate. So follow all those social medias. And since this is a wrestling podcast, I got to get a quick wrestling question in before Kyle goes back from lunch. WWE recently partnered with the NFL to make championship belts. I know Kyle is a fan of the Raiders, so I got to get your opinion on the Raiders title before we leave.
I looked at them. I think they're sweet. I do. I will have one. There will be one in the man cave, from the cheap seats, But yeah, absolutely. I think they're sweet, and I think that idea. I'm amazed that it hasn't came out earlier. You know, truthfully, there's always been like fantasy championship belts, and Aaron Rodgers for years has done the belt, symbol. So it's like it's only right, truthfully.
Yeah, and WWE has been giving them to teams like when they win the Super Bowl, when they win the World Series. So this is just another way to bring fans in. And, like if you're a wrestling fan, but also another sports fan, you've got that belt mark in you that you're going to want your Red Sox championship belt, your Patriots,
Right.
your Raiders, whoever your team is. So before we say goodbye to you, thank you for joining us again. Give us a football pick this week to leave on, and then just let us know whatever you want to know one more time about the podcast.
Sure. Well, I'm actually gonna give you a big hot take. Okay, my MVP for this year is gonna be Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson is gonna bounce back, and he's gonna shock people, and he's gonna win the MVP. Okay, that's good. That's a big one. A week 1 win. I think the Raiders are gonna go to Denver, and we're gonna win. I honestly do. It's a little bit of a homer pick, but I believe in it. I'm gonna leave you guys with this is what I'm looking for from any NFL fan out there. This is your podcast, guys. I want you guys' content. You don't have the opportunity to get on the big major networks. So instead, I'm giving everybody the opportunity. I want to hear what you guys have to say. You have an opinion, and it's valued. We're looking for a representative of all 32 NFL teams, right? We want to be able to, when something's going on with the Chargers, want to be able to call you up and you to drop your knowledge on the Chargers. Want to be able to drop your knowledge on the Browns. If there's any, the Bengals fans out there, anybody who's got an opinion, we want to hear it, and reach out to me. A lot of people, some of your fans may know me, some of your fans don't, but I'm a very, very sociable guy. So if you see me out there in social media land, reach out to me, and I'll do anything I can to let you know how to get in contact with us.
Hey, by the end of the season, we hope all our fans know you. But thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us today, and we will talk to you again later. Have a good one.
I appreciate you guys having me from the cheap seats.
No problem.
All right, and I was just gonna say and expand on that championship thing, and then we'll move on to the rest of the show. But like one thing, pro wrestling, boxing, MMA, they got those championship titles, baby. Like everybody wants to be the champion, and it's such a great marketing idea for the NFL and any other sports franchise. Really, like Kyle said, I'm surprised we haven't jumped on this sooner. Like. It's a good idea.
I just want to say I hope Princess Josh is watching, because they would be very proud that you called it a championship title following all the rules. And a pay-per-view that didn't follow the rules, AEW All Out, happened this past Sunday. Due to the holiday, we were able to watch this, and the excitement level for this was... out of 10, what would you say this was? Like maybe a 2 going in?
Yeah.
Since we actually had the holiday off so we could watch it. So it was a nice
hit. For sure. For me, I think I was, because it was on a day off and everything like that, I'd even go for a 5 for me. But at the end of the day, let's put it this way. If you had put this show like on another day and it was a Sunday, no way I'm watching it live. No absolute fucking way. Like, I mean, if I had to get up work early the next day and say I want to sacrifice or maybe watch some of it, this show would not have done that for me going in.
Yeah, it would have sadly gotten the NWA 75 treatment where it's like we wouldn't have even thought about it. But we did actually watch it.
Yeah.
We watched most of the pre-show, which was nothing to write home about, but non-offensive.
No, it was like the pizza we got. It was all right.
I don't know. When have we ever left half a pizza on the table at a pay-per-view? Like,
that's a good point.
I'm gonna say fuck them. We're not gonna let you know who they are, but I would go there. You know who did this to us.
They know who did this to us. Hey, listen, I got 6, what I consider the 6 points of this show, if you want. As far as All Out, we can go through the whole thing, but I got, to me, there's some matches.
Let's leave the big one that kind of continued on to Wednesday night.
Okay.
Leave that separately for the end, because that's going to be its own whole separate topic. because that budding rivalry is big. But if you want to hit those other notes, let's go through our other thoughts of All Out.
All right, we'll go to the top 5 then. Top 5, number 1 for me, strap match. Danielson is a one-of-a-kind wrestler. Ricky Starks holds his own, but Danielson is on another level. And when you bring out that final countdown song, it just makes everything felt special. On a pay-per-view that maybe not everybody ordered, on the night before, on the lowest, I don't know if you even saw this, the lowest watch Collision in the history of AEW Collision. Rampage did higher ratings this week than Collision.
Wow.
Yeah, Bryan Danielson is a bright spot. He is something special, and this match, I would say, was the match of the night for me.
I actually did watch Collision because I was interested to see how the CM Punk situation would be addressed.
Yeah.
I mean, it was addressed. Tony's been mocked for fearing for his life. We've heard a variety of stories coming out of it, and I mean, it's what's going to lead to the main event topic later, but it was interesting. And to hear that Danielson is now going to get that Punk spot on Collision gives me even higher hopes for that show. But back to the strap match, a very high point of the show. Just hearing Danielson give Starks credit for that match and seeing what it did for Starks was amazing. Thank God it wasn't Ricky Steamboat.
Steamboat. He was struggling on commentary. Another match, I thought the fans really turned this match and made it into something special, was Miro versus Hobbs. It was a hoss fight, but somewhere in the middle of this match, the fans just started slapping. You know, they want to see meat slapping, slapping meat, big men slapping meat, and they were just doing all kinds of variation of meat chants, holy meat, meat forever. It was absolutely ridiculous, but it made this match, and the wrestlers played into it. In the end, Miro wins. His wife shows up. Kind of an awkward, look between the two of them. But I thought these guys really, and the fans really made this match.
Yeah, from the contract signing that occurred in Wembley Stadium to this match here, everything was great. I feel like the one thing that they dropped the ball on was Miro's wife coming in. It was a confused look. I didn't watch all of Dynamite, but I don't know if it was addressed there. And it just seemed like this weird side thing to do for some reason.
Very strange. She's signed to a short-term contract, too. Tony mentioned that. So
hopefully they'll bring it up on Collision this week.
2 other highlights before we get to the main one. Takeshita beat Omega. I thought it was a decent match, but I thought the story is that Takeshita got the win here, and we're continuing to elevate Takeshita. And I'll let you comments on that if you got anything.
It definitely seems like that's what they're aiming for. I like seeing it. I think at first people weren't taking him seriously. Not taking him seriously, but not really caring. And I was excited to see we're getting foreign talent from DDT coming in outside of, who has come in. And I like it. I think this is one thing that Tony Khan's doing well.
Luchasaurus, Darby Allin. I put this on there because Darby Allin, between All Out and All In, just seems like every time this guy's on a mission to kill himself for the fans' enjoyment. Luchasaurus ultimately got the win here. But again, I watched a match like this. I have to put it on as a highlight, but I also look at it and go, man, how much longer is Darby Allin's career going to last here?
Yeah, it's weird. It's one of those matches that I really could care less about the match, but it's interesting to watch to see what Darby's going to do to himself. And given what he's done between All Out and All In and the effect that it's supposedly having on his body, makes it a little rougher to watch, I guess.
Yeah, and then the main event, Joe, I don't know if you ever got back to watching this, but Jon Moxley, Orange Cassidy, I think we were even wondering, should this be the main event? They tore it down. They absolutely, probably the best match of Orange Cassidy's career. And that's not Orange Cassidy's had some great matches, whether people want to say it or not. He has, and this was definitely, by far, I thought, the best match. They built up everything so well with the near falls here. But in the end, Jon Moxley wins, and a big night for the Blackpool Combat Club.
I have to go back and catch this match, but I was surprised to hear that Moxley won. I mean, it's probably the right move with that North American title I think putting it on Moxley could be interesting. He's another person that could hold the show down for that Punk spot. Maybe not that Punk spot, but like that higher level name to carry the company.
No, for sure. And I think he could put some more prestige on that international title. Just having somebody who's been a former AEW and WWE heavyweight champion now holding that title, I feel like you could really elevate the international title, which I thought Orange Cassidy already had done a great job of. And now Moxley could even take it to another level.
Definitely. Now, going from All Out, I know one of the points on your list was probably the rivalry we didn't expect coming out of the show. And it has been between what happened at the pay-per-view and what happened at Dynamite. This is going to be a great main event when we actually get it. And I think they're both fire in all the promos they've brought so far.
Yeah. Joe has been absolutely A+ material no matter what he does. I can't believe that WWE let this guy go. I know it wasn't Triple H's idea, but I mean, whenever they put him in something in WWE, whether it was an NXT, whether it was the brief run he had against Brock, whether it's him as a commentator, he crushes it. He goes to AEW, they put him in Ring of Honor, and they make him the king of television because he was Ring of Honor TV and the TNT title for a while, and he crushed it there. He crushed it, whatever. I mean, the guy continues to do it, and now MJF, who's been the MVP for a long time, they tap into this, basically they're not going to have the footage on Dynamite, but where Joe shoves a young MJF who is a security guard for him at one of the NXT in Brooklyn's. It's been like a meme for years and years. And now we're playing into that. Just this little subtle when MJF was leaving the tag title match from All Out. So Joe just gives him a little push, and then they start going at it, which was great because it's MJF's like, I'm not that kid anymore, which he tweets out. And then the promo on Dynamite where Joe keeps calling him a kid, and they go back and forth. And if you remember when they hooked up too, for a little bit, Joe got that little crank on his neck, and MJF has been selling the neck since All In, right? And this plays into several different things. The friendship with Adam Cole, who hurt his neck in that match. Roderick Strong, who's been complaining about his neck. And there's so much fun, different stuff. This is by far the best stuff going on in AEW right now.
Don't forget about the Muscle Buster breaking Tyson Kidd's neck back in WWE and ending his career. So having that legitimate story follow you, even if you're not going to reference it, if you're talking about breaking necks and making necks dangerous, that's going to come to your mind when thinking of Joe.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Joe's just, I think he's one of the all-time greats, former TNT, former Ring of Honor heavyweight champion, NXT heavyweight champion, and he's every bit deserving to be AEW heavyweight champion. I don't think he's going to get this title. I think MJF will still hold on, but you could do a lot worse than having Samoa Joe carry your company.
Yes. Now, quickly jumping into something from Dynamite, because we saw these guys continue on with a fire promo battle. But I want to talk about how uneven Roderick Strong's booking is. They put up quite possibly the best video for Roderick Strong ever, making him a babyface, it seems.
Yeah.
And then just coming out and doing this whining friend gimmick with Adam Cole, and like that part doesn't connect with me. That was the part where I was like, what's going, like, this is stupid. Like, you just built him up in such a good way. Now you're breaking him down with this lameness, and then you're going to put him in the ring where he's phenomenal. So it's just this back and forth, doesn't seem consistent.
If you go back to the old Wednesday NXTs that were on the WWE Network, they did stuff like this with Roderick Strong. They've had his real life. They talked about his stuff with his mom, and it was done in a very serious tone to capture a real life backstory for Roderick Strong. Here, they did that, but they also did it with him as like a whiny heel. It just felt confusing, and I didn't like it. It felt like we were going back to the well, but now we're trying to put a spin on this guy's actual real life crisis that he had to deal with. it doesn't make him a heel. Like that makes him like, somebody I'd want to cheer for. But you're having him with the fake neck brace. I didn't like it. I thought it was, like you said, very confusing and very strange. And it was unnecessary. Have him come out with the Kingdom like he did, getting in Adam Cole's face for not worrying about his neck, and then have him take it off like he's not even really hurt, and then have him put it back on. That's good stuff. The video package is good if you're trying to build a baby face, which we're not.
Yeah, and I'd like to see more of the Kingdom in the ring as it is. But moving on from AEW quickly, we're going to take a detour because WWE and AEW both had pay-per-views last week, and I have only watched the first couple matches of Payback, so I can't comment on too much. But Dave watched it, had a couple notes, so we'll talk about that quickly before going into the main event this week.
All right, so real quick, I'm just gonna Becky Lynch beating Trish Stratus in the cage match. Probably one of the better matches. Trish had a hematoma on her head at one point, big welt. That looks like this is going to be Trish's last match with the company for a while. So hats on her for taking all these bumps and trying to elevate people like Zoe Stark. I think she did a good job. LA Knight versus Miz, I believe that's what you had seen up to. This was kind of a real average match for me, but I think what it showed was just how over LA Knight is right now. That, it didn't matter like if it was the highest match, like they're behind everything LA Knight is doing.
The worst part of it is I caught all of the talking segment before our pre-show talk with you, me, and Kyle, and that's when the match started. So I will be coming back to that later.
Other than that, Rey Mysterio beat Theory. Seth Rollins, I'm doing this one next, but Seth Rollins beat Nakamura. They're continuing to play up the back, though. Seth's back was hurt in this. Something WWE and AEW are both doing well is keeping injuries sold in some of these angles. MJF continues to sell the neck. Rollins continues to sell the back, which would play out on Raw, and they're building that. But the other matches I wanted to save here were the Judgment Day, because the Judgment Day, Damian Priest and Finn Balor, who had dissension teased for this, come in this match with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who I know have been beat up a little bit, especially Owens. And, oh, my God, Owens was on a mission to be like Terry Funk in here. He was diving off of balconies, just absolutely chaos. Rhea Ripley spears Owens at one point through a barrier, the ring barrier. It was all over the crowd, tables, you name it. But in the end, JD McDonough plays a part, interferes. He gets taken out. Dominic Mysterio finally comes back, and the Judgment Day pull it off, and they're celebrating with all the titles. And Rhea Ripley would go on to beat Raquel Rodriguez as well. So there again, you have this image now of this faction. They have the tag titles, both sets of the tag titles. They have the Money in the Bank contract with Priest. You have the North American title with Dom on NXT, and you have Ripley, who's the women's champion. The visual is great, and what they've done is now they've elevated this faction to almost bloodline level.
Yeah, we did the mid-year awards a little too early because the Bloodline had it at that point for the storyline that they had going in. But we even discussed it in the mid-year awards that going into the end of the year, it could be Judgment Day's time, mainly because they are still a faction and they've been built up huge. They just elevated their status so much more on this pay-per-view that I don't want to say Horseman status, but they're like Dangerous Alliance status. They're going to be that faction that has a name. Do it for another year and a half, then maybe you could start talking about them with some of those other higher ranked factions.
Absolutely. And if Priest does end up with the world title out of this, and they're somehow all still together, now we got even a bigger faction. I'll throw this out here, though. We can do whatever we want with this, but I just think it's interesting. I heard a fan theory somewhere that wouldn't have been something. I don't know if you saw this. JD McDonough came out because he's trying to win over the Judgment Day, and in particular Priest, and he said, "You don't need that briefcase. I got a briefcase." So he gave him this custom briefcase that was like purple and said Judgment Day, and Priest was like, "Oh wow, that's great." Which I thought was kind of goofy, like a briefcase looks like a toy briefcase. But the theory I heard was interesting. Would it have been something if there was no contract actually in that briefcase. He goes to cash in. There's no contract. And then Finn, who they've played up, JD, have been friends for 20-something years, actually pulls out the contract and cashes it in.
That would be interesting. God, we haven't had the no contract in a briefcase since what? Maybe the 80s, 90s?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Money in the Bank, they've never done that. So you could argue it could cheapen it, but it would also be compelling in the fact that it's never been done.
Yeah, I don't know if it cheapens it. I mean, it's already a gimmick, so you're just further gimmicking it, but it gives it a different storyline. So I like that. And speaking of storylines coming out of the weekend, it was before Collision late Saturday afternoon that it was announced that CM Punk was released from AEW. And then going into the pay-per-view, I thought it gave an uneven level of excitement. And now that we know he's released, we don't yet know what he's going to do next. So originally this was going to be an idea for AJ and Dave to go over, but AJ is moving drugs in Florida during a hurricane. I don't know. It seems like a risky time to get so close to Cuba, but he's not here this week, so you've got us to talk about it. Dave, do you have any clear-cut thoughts about what you think Punk is going to do next? Because there's obviously what everybody has as the next possibility.
WWE. I mean, I think that's the thing that's flown out there. Does WWE want him? Does Punk want to do business with them? People have been bringing it up. It's interesting. Punk worked with the UFC. The merger happens Tuesday with UFC and WWE. By all intents and purposes, that's the word going around these different websites. It's supposed to be official Tuesday. Endeavor will own both of them. Punk's worked with the UFC. Punk still works with the UFC. In the last few months, he's done commentary for one of their promotions on their Fight Pass. So Punk has a way. So that could change a lot of things. Could Punk do better this time around in a WWE environment? It is probably a different environment. Obviously, we can see there's a bigger structure thing there with Paul Levesque and stuff like that. People aren't going to be making comments and everything like that. However, at the end of the day, is the problem just Punk? That seems to be the thing. But at the end of the day, if they think they can make money off him, they will. They'll put him in there for a limited time with Roman. Now, I just want to throw this out there. Could you see Punk in another group like an Impact Wrestling or something like that? I don't think they could afford Punk. I don't think it's worth it for a group like Impact to try to make a move for Punk unless you have a big television deal coming out of it. You know what I mean? Like if you had something like you could do like, so hypothetically, you could get Impact back on ESPN or something like that. Well, now you got a major name on a major television deal. Otherwise, you just have CM Punk on the same TV audience you have. And they've brought people like Kenny Omega and stuff before with a boost, but it never quite sustained and it never quite got the boost of anything else. And Punk would be a lot more money than a trade agreement they had worked with.
I don't see WWE being likely. I mean, it's a possibility, but I don't see Punk wanting to have to put up with that after what he's just gone through with AEW. Impact is an interesting idea, and it's one of two places that I see him possibly landing. The other one is MLW. And the reason I say MLW is Court Bauer likes to take those big swings. I believe Punk showed up on some old MLW shows in their first run.
Yeah.
I think Court would see this as a chance to kind of scoop up a possible talent from going to WWE and kind of appealing to that idea that Punk wants to teach these younger superstars in the way that MLW is still kind of in that indie format.
Then I'll throw one more name at you then, because you just threw me there. NWA, Billy Corgan. Billy Corgan backs up the money truck, actually puts all his money down on a guy like CM Punk. Corgan likes a guy who can talk. Corgan beats to his own drum as well. And I think he would not be worried or scared of having somebody with Punk's reputation in his locker room.
100%. And I'm going to play this quick thing because I meant to play this at the end of Kyle's segment because it is a quick ad for his podcast. And then, as always, we got to take you to rest.
Remember when you were trying to tell the world that Josh Allen was going to be better than Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield? And everybody you told, they did this. And what about when you told your friends that Jalen Hurts was going to be better than Tua, and this was their response? Are you the guy known as the conductor of the Lions hype train and not the caboose? The From the Cheap Seats podcast is looking for a representative of all 32 NFL teams to impart their knowledge beyond the group chat. We aim to expand on the fan experience with a unique opportunity to include yourself in the conversation. For the fans, by the fans, from the cheap seats.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville, it's where wrestling lives.